Finding Beauty in a Broken World. I was drawn to the title of this book before I knew what it was about and who wrote it. It ends up that it's actually by one of my favorite authors, a woman named Terry Tempest Williams, who speaks poetry. Her writing is like a meditation. It's flowing, clear, insightful. And the book is about making mosaics in Italy. Imperfect glass with flaws in it or shards from other projects are broken and brought back together in mosaic designs or patterns. And they create beauty. I love this metaphor. Imperfection is made beautiful. We really have something to learn from art, don't we? You know, can we make our own imperfections beautiful? Can we think of our practice and our lives like an art form? Can we see ourselves just like a potter or a painter that practices, makes mistakes, learns, and creates beauty along the way? This practice of ours, it's a container. And within it, we work in different ways to hold ourselves and our minds. We try to be creative, playful. It's not formulaic. Instead, we make it our own and it becomes beautiful. Creating mosaics and creating our practice are both about embracing what is imperfect. It's not that hard to find the beauty in broken glass, the rich colors and contrasts, but it seems to be a little harder to welcome the imperfections in ourselves. It's easier even to see the beauty in someone else's imperfections, right? We like to see their humanness. It makes them relatable, and we connect with that. But we have really different criteria for ourselves. I personally can name a list of things that I wish I could do better than I do, that I wish I was more perfect at. Some are fairly benign and I can laugh, like keeping my garden weed free and in bloom all summer long. But others are harder to hold. Conversation with families, things I should have said or should not have said. And I want to navigate the conversation perfectly. You know, no matter what it is for you, when we're not perfect in our own eyes, we are at the least disappointed. But we can also be so hard on ourselves. You know the voice of the inner critic, the voice that judges you every step of the way, unforgiving, has really high expectations. It can be insidious inside us. And, you know, there are books written about the inner critic. Some kind of come from a Buddhist lens, others have a psychological bent. This self-critical voice is familiar to us. And we have many opportunities to practice with it over and over again. And like an art form, we find what works for us in this moment. We might simply watch our thoughts, give them some space, not buy into that critical voice in our mind, and remind ourselves that the thoughts are conditioned, like everything else in the world. This actually helps me, that bit of distance, and reminding myself that my thoughts are not personal. I don't have to believe them. And that loosens the grip a little bit. We can also bring this into our hearts. Find compassion for this critical voice that's always striving, that's unsatisfied and always wants more. We can hold it, we can care for it, and notice the pain that it causes. Maybe sometimes even humor can help. I know one meditator who says lightly to themselves, "Here comes the judge," after that song from the 1960s. So we find ways to soften around our striving for perfection. But I think there's something more here. There's also a deeper understanding that perfection is unattainable. As hard as we try, the goalpost is always changing because everything's in a state of change. We can't hold on to any moment of perfection. If you know any artist, you'll always see that they think they can do more on a project, a tweak here or there. It's never perfect because perfect doesn't exist. So I wonder if we can begin to see the richness in this. I wonder, what is good enough? Not a good enough that feels like a second choice if you can't make it quite perfect, but a good enough that is rich and full in and of itself, that includes the right effort, just enough, not the striving that hurts and is full of attachment, and the good enough that's motivated by the right intention, the intention to do well, to have integrity in what you do. So I've been thinking about this a lot around playing the piano. I've played off and on since I was a kid, and I am not great, but I love music. It touches something deep in me. So I return time and again to play. Only recently I've realized that much of my effort was to learn to play a piece perfectly so I could perform it for family or at a recital. And that's how my lessons and learning were structured. But the thing is, I never played it perfectly. I always made a mistake somewhere in the piece and I'd get frustrated. So I've recently wondered, what does it mean to me to play well enough? What I realized is that I didn't want to play for others, that I really only wanted to play for my own enjoyment. So with that intention, I can let go of the striving to play perfectly. But if I want to play well enough to enjoy it, I have to make an effort to practice. What feels different is that making mistakes doesn't matter. I can be imperfect and still enjoy the music. So right intention and right effort, and it's a really rich, good enough. I think this makes for a really interesting analogy to our sitting practice. If we think just for a moment, is there such a thing as a perfect meditation? If it means to stick with our object of meditation and never wander off of it, then none of us ever have a perfect meditation. So either we can see it that way as never perfect, or the imperfect becomes perfect. The returning, the holding and caring for ourselves again and again becomes beautiful. Meeting ourselves as if for the first time in each moment and trying different approaches becomes rich, and our practice is just more than good enough. It's like a piece of art. we're creating something beautiful of our minds and our hearts. So I want to come full circle as I end and introduce another art form like mosaics that finds beauty in the supposed imperfections in life. Wabi sabi, just kind of a crazy name, but it is an art form mostly practiced in Japan that's rooted in Zen practice that appreciates simplicity. And it looks to the beauty in imperfection and asymmetry, both in nature, like the off-balance tree, and in what's created by humans, like mosaic. It's described as espousing three I's. It's imperfect, it's impermanent, and incomplete. And it's beautiful too. So I just want to end with two quotes by a person named Sunetra Gosi, who practices wabi sabi, just to give you a sense of it. And he or she, I don't know which this person is, says, appreciate all things for their beauty, especially the enormous beauty that lies beneath the surface of what appears to be damaged. And the next is, perfection does not exist because imperfection is the natural state of life. You are whole, the entirety of you as you are. So we are all in good company. And let's now sit and make some art for ourselves. Thank you so much for your attention.